this is going to be quite the video. Hello everyone, I'm Julia. Welcome back to my channel, Hella Knits. Today is not going to be a regular podcast video like my last one. I thought today I would share all of the things I knit in 2024. I love watching these videos and I think this might give you an idea of the things that I like to knit and allow me to reflect on all the things that I knit throughout this year. I plan to discuss the yarn, the patterns that I used, any modifications that I did. I have a lot of the things that I knit here with me so I can show them to you, but for those that were gift knits and given away to other people, I'll try my best to put a photo on the screen for you guys to be able to see. Before I get started, I'll talk about what I'm currently wearing, which is not something that I made in 2024. This is the Ingrid sweater from Petiteknit, and I knit this in Drops Lima held together with Drops Kid Silk Mohair. I think the Lima was in the color dark blue and the Mohair was marine blue, or maybe it was the other way around. It's not quite a navy, it's just a little bit lighter than a navy, and I noticed even though the yarns are different colors or different colorways, they're pretty similar, although I find, as with a lot of the Drops Kid Silk Mohair, the silk doesn't really take up the dye very well. So I don't know if you can see, the silk is just a little bit lighter than the main color yarn, but that's okay. I don't mind seeing the little bit of sheen in the silk. I didn't love this pattern at first when it came out, and I modified it to have a folded over crew neck instead of the high mock neck that is recommended in the pattern. And I don't even know if I gauge swatched, honestly. I think I just started and I knit the size small, which wound up being quite big, but I'm still happy with how it turned out and how the fit is, even though it's a bit longer than what I normally knit too. I normally shorten all my patterns because I have a really short torso. I usually prefer my garments to sit right around my hip bones. This one I did modify quite a bit to shorten it, and it still is longer than what I normally knit. I think it calls for 2 of these cable motifs, these crisscross ones, in the body and in the sleeves, and I modified them to only have 1. I also shortened the ribbing sections quite a bit, and it still is pretty long, but it is really cozy, and it's just such an easy kind of slouchy sweater to throw on with leggings if I want to look a little put together. I think that even though it's knit with mohair, it's not super hot like I find some of my other just straight stockinette mohair sweaters are. Because it's so big and there's those eyelets, you get a little bit of airflow, which is nice sometimes, and it allows me to wear this more times throughout the year than just a straight stockinette mohair sweater with no holes. So that is what I'm wearing. This is one of my most worn sweaters, and I didn't think that it would be that way when I was making it, but I'm really happy with this sweater. I did go back in my phone camera library and try to put these in semi-chronological order, although I did knit a couple of the same pattern more than once throughout the year, so I'll just talk about those all together. But this is generally in the order that I did complete these projects. So the first thing that I made in 2024 was the Celeste Sweater by Petiteknit. So this is a Colourwork yoke sweater with a high neck. It's knit top down in the round, and it just has a regular 1x1 rib on the body and on the sleeves. This was my very first Colourwork sweater that I ever made, and I don't know if you can tell, the tension is a little messed up on the yoke. Basically what happened, I was so paranoid about it being too tight, like the gauge for my Colourwork, that I was just intentionally knitting looser and really trying to be conscious of not tightening my work too much. But I wound up overcompensating, and the gauge on the top of the Colourwork was okay. And then as I got to the larger circumference, the gauge was like way too loose. And I didn't even really think about it being an issue until I was done the body, and I looked back and I was like, oh my god, that is not right. So instead of frogging back, which I guess I could have done, I decided to go in with a crochet hook because it wasn't all of the rows that were loose, it was just certain ones. So I literally went in with a crochet hook and pulled from the wrong side of the fabric individual rounds of color work to tighten them so the gauge looked right, and that seemed to do the trick. I mean, you can see that it's a little wonky, but honestly, it's not so bad, and when I'm wearing it, you can't really tell. I really love the fit of this sweater, and I was surprised that the yoked sweaters, or at least this one, fit me so well, because I didn't think that it would. But I really like the fit. It's a little boxy. I feel like it has the perfect amount of positive ease for me, and I'm just really pleased with the pattern overall. I think it turned out really nice. I'll show you the color work. The pattern is from Petiteknit, and I think this, oh, this is the wrong side here. This is the front. So I think this color scheme, I had never chosen colors for color work before, so I wanted to go in person, and I picked this Gynt up from Myrtle Station Wool, which doesn't have an online shop. She literally sells yarn out of her house, and it's so much fun to go and just touch all the yarn, and the lady who owns it is super nice. So I went there, and she's got so much Gynt, and a lot of the colors are discontinued, or at least the yarn has an older version of the Gynt label. I'm not sure what the color numbers are because I just assumed they were discontinued. They might not be. The main colors like this off-white, and then the contrast colors, I have like a light blue color, it's sort of a light gray beige, a dark brown mix, and then a charcoal sort of mix color. These are similar to the colors that Petiteknit used in her baby or child version sample, I think. And I essentially just copied that because I didn't want to pick colors that would turn out poorly, and I wanted a nice amount of contrast throughout the colorwork motif. So I'm really pleased with how this turned out. I think I modified the colorwork motif slightly in that I switched one or two of the colors on a couple sections so that it looked better and there wasn't as much blocks of color. I remember when I finished this, I was really worried about like this section, these three panels here, because the colors are so similar and there's not as much contrast, and I thought it looked maybe a little bit stripy, and I think it looks quite nice. I get so much wear out of this. I remember right when I finished it, it was winter, it was January of 2023. My boyfriend had surprised me with a weekend trip to like a treehouse cabin, which was so much fun, and I brought this, and I remember finishing it on the trip, and immediately when we got home I blocked it, and then I thought this is the like quintessential winter sweater, and we wore it to go ice skating downtown, and that was so much fun. I just thought the first time I wear it has to be a quintessential winter activity, so that's what we did. And this has gotten so much wear, and it's not hardly pilled at all. I think these pills are not true pills. They're just like, oh, maybe there's one pill, okay? After almost a whole year of wearing this a lot. And I think it's because the Gynt is a little bit rustic and woolly, and it wears really well. I was worried that it might be a little itchy on my neck because of the high neck and the wool fabric being so close to my neck, but once you wear it a few times, it's really not that bad. I think my skin's kind of gotten used to it, but I'm not overly sensitive anyway. And yeah, you could get away with wearing this with a t-shirt underneath, or I've sometimes just worn it with no t-shirt underneath. It's really, really warm because the colorwork creates a double layer of fabric. So this is one that I throw on even if it's just cold in the house. I'll wear this because it really warms me up. And I think I knit the size small. Yes. Yeah, I knit the small. So I think that's all I have to say about this. This is the Celeste Sweater. Okay, the next thing I have to talk about is something very luxurious, and it is the Elisabeth Blouse from Petiteknit. So let me show you. So this is it in all its glory. This is a top-down polo style sweater with a raglan shoulder shaping, and it's just kind of boxy all the way down. The recommended yarn for this pattern is Cardiff Cashmere Classic. I think there's another option too, but I actually wound up knitting it in that yarn. I got it on sale from Unit in Toronto, and this is such a soft and luxurious sweater. A few years ago, I ordered from Colourwork and I got some 100% cashmere off skeins. Is that what it's called? It's like dead stock yarn. And I got some partial cones in different colors. And I knit with that actually. I made my friend a Sophie scarf with that. And I found that it was really soft only after you washed it a few times because it comes with a lot of spinning oil on the yarn. Because I think that yarn is actually intended to be used for machine knitting for garments to be sold. And when I knit with this, it was completely different. It's so soft and fluffy. I don't know if you can see the little halo. It doesn't create like a hairy halo like Mohair. It's just so luxurious and it has a beautiful drape. I saw this pattern and I thought, I need to knit this. I think I cast it on shortly after the Elisabeth Blouse actually came out, although I could be wrong about that. All I do know is that polo sweaters were so in earlier this year, and I thought I would love to make one to wear to clinic. And so that's what I did. The pattern was pretty straightforward. I think the only confusing thing about it was casting on, because you cast on here at the edge of the collar, and I think it uses Judy's Magic Cast On. You cast on and you knit in both directions to create this double folded collar all at once. And that was a little bit tedious because I think it required a couple different needles. And I wound up using not the right size of needle, but it worked out anyway. Since then, I have cast on with the Judy's Magic Cast On again. And I find that if you don't size down your needles, the first row of stitches that you create with the cast on can be a little bit loose. So I find sizing down actually helps make it a little bit neater, so you can see that the edge is really nice and clean. I am not entirely pleased with the way the first few rows ended up on this sweater. I don't know if you can tell, like the corner of this is not really that neat. I think this side is better, but I'm honestly not sure what it is that made it messy. And I actually remember going in with a crochet hook and like plucking the stitches to make them even. I think it's just the edge stitches of knitting sometimes can get a little bit loose, at least for me. I mean, that helped it just a little bit too, just pulling them out, but I don't know. It definitely could be nicer, and I think it's just because essentially you're knitting in the round. So you cast on and you have one needle on either side of the collar and you're knitting along one side and then directly knitting along the back. So these stitches on the edge wind up being essentially the bridge between what is like a makeshift magic loop, and that stitch typically for me is loose. So I think that is what the issue was, but I'm not too upset about it because the rest of it looks pretty clean. I'm happy with how the double knit little V turned out. The only other problem that I had was actually with the yarn. I gauge swatched and I got gauge, but I found that it was pretty holey and loose and more open gauge than I would like. And you can still see, like, you can kind of see through this fabric. And I find that when gauge is a little bit loose like this, it doesn't look as neat and professional. I also found that my ribbing flares out ever so slightly. I don't know if you can tell, but it doesn't like cinch in, which is a little odd because normally my ribbing does cinch in. Those are probably the only things that I would change if I were to knit it again. If I were to knit with Cardiff Cashmere Classic again, I would probably hold it with a lace weight or fingering weight yarn because it's advertised as a DK and I don't think this is a DK. I think it's closer to a fingering. It's only a DK because it kind of plumps up when you wash it and the fluff semi fills in the gaps between the stitches, but this was written for a sport weight, this pattern. I think it's a 23 stitch gauge. And although I got gauge, I think the fabric is not exactly how I would want it. Although it's not so bad because I wear it usually with a camisole or a t-shirt underneath, so I don't normally just wear it straight up because it would be see-through. I'm not too upset about it. I don't think I'm so upset about it that I would frog it and knit it again. I did crop it quite a bit because I only got 8 balls of this yarn instead of 9, so I basically knit the sleeves as long as I wanted them and then I just knit the body until I ran out of yarn. There are some things that I think I would do a little bit differently, but that being said, I still do wear this quite a bit, and it is really lovely to wear because of the cashmere. It's lightweight, it's drapey, it's soft. It is really luxurious. So that is the Elisabeth blouse. So the next thing that I have to talk about is a knit that I don't have with me. It is called the Dylan's Beanie by Woolly Wormhead, and it's essentially a top-down beanie knit in the round in 1x1 rib, and it's a single folded brim. I knit this with Estelle Alpaca Merino worsted, I think, in like a blue mix colorway, like a dark denim blue. Turned out really nice, and that yarn actually is so soft. I definitely think I would knit with it again for something that like goes on my head or my neck. This hat, I guess, is not entirely knit by me because I used it to teach my boyfriend how to knit. For that reason, I picked a top-down hat. Even though I normally knit bottom-up hats, I think I like the look of the decreases a little bit better, but I wanted to be able to cast on and do the increases for him and then just allow him to knit and purl until it's long enough because I didn't want him to learn how to do decreases or increases at that time. So that's what I did. I think the cast on, I don't remember what it was called, but I remember it being kind of tricky and I'm not sure why. I think it was just a little finicky with so few stitches. And it took me a few tries to get it right, but once I did, it wasn't so bad, and the increases look really nice. I'll try and get some footage of the hat in here for you to be able to see. He currently is at work and has it with him, so I can't show it to you, but he gets so much wear out of this hat, and he was so proud to knit it himself. I think I did the cast off for him and maybe the last few inches of ribbing because he was getting a little sick of it. In hindsight, it might have been better for him to do an all stockinette hat because then he didn't have to learn how to purl, but he got the hang of it pretty quick and he didn't need a whole lot of help from me after he got the first few rounds. So that was good. It worked out, and then at the end, once I blocked it, he does have a bigger head than me, but even still on his head, it was a little bit loose, and we both prefer to have a little negative ease on hats. So I wound up just sewing some knitting elastic in, like 6 or 7 rounds of knitting elastic, and that seemed to do the trick, and it prevented it from stretching out too much, especially because it's ribbing. I think it can stretch out over time. So that was the Dylan's Beanie. I think that was a free pattern. I don't know if I'd knit it again, only because I actually hate knitting ribbed hats. I would much rather just knit in stockinette and get it through quickly. I find the Oslo hat is one of those that I've knit so many of them this year, and they go by really fast because it's just stockinette. You can knit, even though you have to knit a longer piece of fabric than a worsted weight ribbed hat. You know what I mean? So like, even though the length of this hat, the Dylan's Beanie, was shorter, I would prefer to knit the Oslo hat, which is longer because it doesn't require purling. I am pretty happy with how it turned out, especially with how much use he gets out of it. It is kind of pilling a little bit, but it's not so bad considering how much wear he's gotten out of it. The next thing that I have to talk about are some Oslo hats. So I only have one of them here. So the first Oslo hat that I made was for my mom for her birthday in February. I mentioned in my last video that I made her some penny gloves in the Sandnes Sunday Perfect Purple color for Christmas, and I did that because I made her a hat in February in that same color, and she wears it all the time. I'll try and put a picture here. It is such a beautiful purple color, and purple is one of her favorite colors, and she wears it all the time. I had knit her a weekend hat, I think the year prior in 2023, out of Sandnes Sunday as well, and I think that one ended up in the washing machine and quite a bit smaller than it was when I gave it to her. So I made her another one, and it was an Oslo hat this time because, like I said, I don't think I'll ever knit a ribbed hat again, honestly, especially in a DK weight. So the Oslo hat was perfect, and she loves it, and she learned her lesson because she was so upset when the first one got in the wash. So this one is not making it in the wash, and that was the first Oslo hat that I made this year. I think I did the size medium because she has a bit of a larger head than I do, but I did it on the recommended needles and it was fine. I actually don't gauge swatch for the Oslo hat. I just kind of go for it and cast on however many stitches I think would fit whoever's head it's for. So that was the first Oslo hat. The second Oslo hat is the one that I have here, so let me show it to you. So this is a blue Oslo hat. This is one I made for my boyfriend for his birthday, and he is a fan of the Buffalo Bills football team. I made it out of Sandnes Sunday in electric blue, held double, so that's the main color. And then the other colors that I used are Drops Lima in chalk and Sandnes Sunday in poppy, held double, which I actually have leftovers, so I'll show you. So these are the leftovers. This is the Drops Lima in chalk, which is leftover from the storm sweater that I made for him the year prior. And this is Sandnes Sunday in the color poppy, which is a really nice bright red color. So these are the colors that I used. And basically I had the idea of doing like a duplicate stitch pattern over top of the stockinette. I didn't really know how I was going to do it at first, but I went online and I found Chartminder, which is a website you can use for free. And you can basically input any image file and select the size of design that you want. So the number of stitches and the number of rows that you want the design to be. And it will create a chart for you based on the image. So that's what I used, and I created a chart with the Buffalo Bills logo. So I hope you can see it there. Turned out pretty nicely. Essentially, this website, I don't know if you've ever played Animal Crossing, but it was basically like making those little shirt designs on Animal Crossing, but for knitting. It was fun, and it turned out really well, but I find that that website, the automatic charts that it creates are not exactly perfect, especially if you're working with sort of a small area. It looks kind of pixelated, so you can go in and edit it like after the fact to make it perfect. So yes, I inputted the Buffalo Bills logo and I modified it. I actually used the hat that I made for my mom as a guide as to how many stitches it would need to be tall to fit on the brim if I made it the exact same, and then also how many stitches wide I would want it to be, like if it were on his head, so that the pattern didn't exceed like the front half of the hat, and also to avoid it rolling underneath and getting obscured by the fold. So once I made the chart, I cast on for the hat and I knit the entire brim, which I think is like 20 centimeters or something. So this hat is knit from the bottom up, and you basically start and you cast on, you knit like 20 centimeters and then you fold it, sew it together and continue knitting. So you have, this is a double fold piece here, and then you continue, and this is single, and it creates this triple folded brim, which is really warm over your ears. And I wanted to duplicate stitch the pattern on before I sewed the two pieces together, because then I would have access to the wrong side of the fabric. I can sew in all my ends and then it can be enclosed in the fold. I think it would have been a lot more difficult had I sewn it together first, because I wouldn't be able to see the back side of the fabric. So I duplicate stitched it all on. I think it turned out pretty well, although some of my stitches, there's a little bit of gapping in the red part especially that you can see. I was worried that as I was duplicate stitching it, I was really staring at all the stitches really closely, and I was thinking, oh my god, this is gonna look really pixelated, and I didn't think it would look like what I wanted it to and be clear that this was the Buffalo Bills logo. But once I finished, I just took a step back and you can really tell, I think it looks like the logo. In hindsight, I would have liked to have knit a few more rows before doing the duplicate stitch and sewing it together, because I don't know if you can tell when I blocked it, the bottom of the logo kind of folds under here just ever so slightly. And once it's on his head, he can adjust it how he wants. He really loves this hat. He doesn't get as much wear out of it as the Dylan's beanie, the ribbed one, because I think he's a little more precious about this and doesn't want it to get ruined, but he still really loves it. And the fabric is so nice. Like, Sandnes Sunday is perfect for giving to people because it's woolly and it's light and it has those nice qualities of a woolly fabric, but it's soft, and I think it's sort of universally tolerated on people's skin. So this is the Oslo hat number 2. The third Oslo hat that I made was for my dad for his birthday in July. I knitted out of a Colourwork Angora wool blend that's like a green mixed color. Let me show you. I have a swatch. Okay, so here it is. This is it held double. I hope you can see. I think it's a sport weight, even though the pattern is DK. I just knit it sport weight because I thought the fabric looked nice. So this is it here. It's like a green, I would say it's like an army kind of military green, but it has a little bit of brown and warm sort of flecks in it. It's really nice and soft once you wash it and get the spinning oil off of it. There was a time when I ordered from Colourwork quite a bit, and now I'm kind of off Colourwork because the colors are just a little hard to tell how they look online, and also they have quite a bit of spinning oil on them. I find the yarns are also thinner than what I would prefer, and they're a little bit of an awkward gauge. So I wound up getting this yarn a while ago, years ago, and I got, I think, 2 cones of it because I was gonna hold it double to create this gauge and knit a men's sweater, which I didn't wind up doing. So I have so much of this yarn left and I don't know what to do. I don't know if it's my color. Let me know what you think. Should I knit something for myself or should I give it away to someone else? I'm not sure. Because I have enough to make a men's sweater holding this double, and it's just been sitting for a really long time. It feels really nice though. Anyway, that's enough about the yarn. The hat turned out really well. The gauge wasn't too loose, and I think I cast on even smaller than the smallest size because the increases, there's 8 increases per round once you get to the crown of the hat. And my dad has kind of a small head like me, so I just decreased the smallest size stitch count by 8 to keep with the increase rate and make the hat a little bit smaller. So it worked out, and he loves that hat. He was really grateful that I made him a hat. I think that was the first thing I knit for my dad. The hat was perfect. So that was the third Oslo hat that I made this year. The final Oslo hat that I made, I did it actually in the summertime, but it was given away as a gift in November, and I'll put a picture of it here. This is a purple Oslo hat. I think I have the leftovers for it, so I'll show you. Okay, so this was the main color. It was Sandnes Sunday in the color Passion Flower, I think. Let me show you. So this is it. Color number 5235. So it's this really beautiful medium, kind of like Barney purple color. And I held it double to make the Oslo hat, so it was the same gauge as the blue one that I did. I actually wound up knitting this for my boyfriend's mom. So whenever I had made him the Buffalo Bills hat, she was kind of jealous, and she loves the Baltimore Ravens. That is her football team. So I decided to do a Baltimore Ravens version, and I kind of improved on the blue one that I had made. So I knit a couple rounds longer than on the blue one, and I also used Chartminder. By the way, the charts for both of these are on my Ravelry on their project pages. So if you want to use them, they're there for free. You can use them on whatever you want. You could put them on a sweater or gloves or whatever. So they're there for you. I followed them exactly. So these are the colors that I used for the rest of the hat. So this is Sandnes Sunday in Poppy. And then the leftover chalk. I have so much of this actually left over because I bought the yarn for the men's XL and I wound up knitting the large. And I got like a couple extra balls because it was on sale. So I have so much of this Lima left. This is the Drops Lima in chalk. And then this is the leftover from the weekend hat that I made for my mom in 2023. It's also Sandnes Sunday, and I think it's a really, really dark navy. I don't think it's black. I think it's like Sailor in the Night or something. That's what it's called. I don't have the ball band, but this is it. It looks close enough to black, so I used it. And then I got this specifically for the hat. This is a ball of pure Gynt. It's in the color Gold Sand. It's this nice like golden yellow color. And these kind of go perfectly with the Ravens logo. So for this Ravens hat, I created in Chartminder again a chart for the Baltimore Ravens logo, and I modified it from the automatically generated chart to kind of perfect it. I was really worried about it seeming like pixelated because there's so many details in that logo compared to the Bills logo that I used. Like the beak is nice and pointy, and then there's like points on the head of the raven, and I was really taking my time to edit that chart and kind of squinting at it to see what it would look like from far away, just to make sure that it actually looked like what I wanted it to. That was honestly the hardest part about it. And then after that, I just kind of did the exact same thing as the Buffalo Bills hat. So I knit the brim in its entirety, and then I put stitch markers to kind of mark where the borders of the chart were. And I started duplicate stitching. The duplicate stitch didn't take all that long. I think there were a few times where I messed up and then I had to pull it out, which was annoying. But as long as I took my time and was really cautious and reading the stitches really carefully, it wasn't so bad. If you're not comfortable reading stitches, doing something like that in duplicate stitch might be challenging because you really have to be able to visualize where the individual stitches are to duplicate stitch over them. So that would be the only tricky part, and then obviously the time it takes to duplicate stitch it, but I was really happy with how that turned out. She cried when she opened it on her birthday. She was so happy. I think that every time she has someone over to her house, she shows them the hat. So she's really proud of it, and I'm really happy that I knit it for her. I really am happy with how it turned out. It looks a lot more impressive than I think it is, because it's just a simple stockinette hat, but adding a design on it just changes it. I would love to knit myself an Oslo hat and maybe duplicate stitch something on the brim for mine. I'm not like a huge football fan, but I would love to do something sort of simple and duplicate stitch like a little cute pattern on it. I don't know what I would do though, so maybe let me know what you think would be cute on an Oslo hat. There also could be Ravelry projects already that have some duplicate stitch on them, so maybe I'll take a look and see what other people have done, see if I can get any inspo. But yes, I think that is all of the Oslo hats that I made this year. Okay, so the next thing that I made is a Champaign cardigan. Let me show you. So it's in this beautiful cobalt blue color. I did it quite cropped. I'll talk about the yarn first. So the yarn is Sandnes Double Sunday in the color Electric Blue, and then I held it together with Drops Kid Silk Mohair in the color Cobalt Blue. I don't know if you can see again, but like the cord of this mohair is kind of white, or like not white, but it's a light blue, lighter than the main color. And this is something that I've noticed with a lot of the Drops mohair. It blends in nicely. It's a little bit of a marled effect, and when you squint you can't really tell. So this mohair is a little bit itchy. It's a little bit itchy. I find this blue is itchier than the dark blue that I have on now, and it's also itchier than the brown color that I've knit with. So I find there's a little inconsistency in the texture of the Drops mohair, and so I don't knit with it a whole lot anymore for that reason. Even though it is one of the cheaper mohairs, I don't know if I would really knit with it again, unless they had a color that I really wanted that no other brand had. I just find that it's a little more inconsistent. So that is the yarn. The buttons, I actually was gifted these buttons by my friend who also knits. She went on a trip to Japan and she came back and brought me some beautiful buttons that she picked out from different places there. So these are like white buttons that have a little flower pattern on them and little flower cutouts. They're so cute, and I thought they would be perfect with this yarn. The reason I knit with this Drops mohair is because I got it years ago to make a Cumulus blouse holding one strand of mohair, and I knit the majority of it. I think I knit the entire body plus 1.5 sleeves. Like I only had half a sleeve left, and I just didn't enjoy knitting it for some reason, and I wasn't excited about it, so I put it down and put it in hibernation for the longest time. And then I finally came back to it and was like, I don't think I'm gonna wear this. So I went through the process of frogging it. I didn't freeze it or anything. I've heard some people freeze their things with mohair to make the process of frogging a little bit easier, but I didn't do that. And it turned out okay. It was It took a while, but if you have patience and you don't yank the yarn and you're just gentle with it, it's not so bad. So I frogged all that yarn and I loved the color so much, like I kept it in my stash. And then when I was ordering yarn for that blue hat, it kind of reminded me that I had that mohair left, like a sweater quantity of it. So I got the matching double Sunday, and then that's what kind of pushed me to knit this. I thought the color would look so good with these white buttons, and it definitely does. This is actually the second Champaign cardigan that I made. The first one I made was in brown, and it's quite a bit longer, and I kind of wish I didn't knit it that long, but I get a lot of use out of it anyway because the oversizedness of the cardigan kind of goes with the length, and it makes it a little more slouchy and cozy. So I do get a lot of wear out of that, and I wanted to make another one, and I made it a lot more cropped this time. So this is like a cropped, fully cropped cardigan, which I really like the look of, although I don't know if I love it buttoned up. I usually wear it unbuttoned just with like a white t-shirt and jeans, and I'm really happy with how it turned out. The fabric has a beautiful drape because of the silk mohair, and this pattern is just so beautiful. Like, I think it's the double knit button band that really gets me and makes it look so professional and store-bought, not handmade. So I'm really pleased with this. I remember I made this actually when I was on a trip to New York with some of my friends from school. We went over our reading week and I was knitting on this there. I think I finished it on that trip, and then I came home and immediately blocked it. So very good memories associated with this sweater. It's definitely not a mobile travel project. I don't know what possessed me to bring it on a trip because it takes up a lot of room, but I'm glad that I did because I got a lot of it done on the way there. And yes, I love this cardigan. So that is the Champaign cardigan, and it's from Petiteknit. Oh, I should say the size I made is the size small, which in hindsight, I probably should have sized down to an extra small because my other Champaign cardigan was also quite big. It's intended to be big, this pattern, but it's quite big, like very boxy and oversized. So I think if I were to knit this again, which I honestly might, I would definitely size down to an extra small. All right, so the next thing that I have to show you is a pair of socks. Let me show them to you first. So these are the Vanilla Latte socks by Virginia Rose Jean. These are the Vanilla Latte socks. It's a free pattern, although I remember I had a lot of trouble accessing the pattern. There's a Ravelry page for it, but I think the download through Ravelry is no longer available. So I wound up searching on Reddit, actually, and I found a link to the pattern PDF. I don't know why it's not available anymore, but anyway, I found it, and it's just basically a top-down sock. You have 1x1 rib cuff, and this pattern is really nice because it gives you multiple options for the heel and toe. This was my first ever pair of socks. I just did the first heel that appeared in the pattern as I was reading it. So this is a slip stitch heel, and then I think this is called a box toe or a star toe. I can't remember, but basically it's essentially a 4-stitch raglan down either side of the toe to make the decreases. So yes, this is the Vanilla Latte sock, the first sock I ever made, and I got some sock needles. I kind of had an adventure with sock needles because I didn't know what method of knitting socks I would prefer. So I had a sock needle that I could knit with magic loops, so a really long circular sock needle, and then I also got some mini sock needles, like a 9-inch circular, that I could just knit in the round continuously. So these, I don't know if you can tell, these are slightly different sizes. So the smaller one was knit on magic loop entirely, and the slightly larger one was knit on mini circulars. I liked and disliked both in a sense. So I think I prefer magic loop for socks if I were to knit a sock again, but I don't know if I will because I'm making a circular sock machine. I liked magic loop because you could keep the tension on the sock a lot better, and I find this one fits my foot. This is a 64 stitch sock, which was the number of stitches according to my foot measurement. It still is a little bit big. I think I might go down to 60 stitch if I were to knit socks again. But I liked magic loop because it kept the stitches nice and tight. And I liked the mini circulars because in Magic Loop, you know, you slide the needle out and restart for the other half. You didn't have to do that with the mini circulars, which is really nice, and you could knit faster, but it really is quite a learning curve figuring out how to hold the needles. I found it difficult to find a way to get my hands oriented that was comfortable to knit with them. Like, I think it kind of did hurt my hands knitting with the small circulars. So I have them. Like, if I wanted to knit socks again, I might try again using them, but I think that it did make my stitches a little larger and it was pretty difficult to hold them. So I'm not too sure how I feel about the mini circulars. I'm not bothered by the fact the socks are slightly different. It doesn't matter. These are the first pair of socks I ever made, and I get so much wear out of them. As you can probably tell by the completely felted heel, I wear these all the time. And the way I wash them, because it's a superwash yarn that I used, I just put them in the delicate cycle with my other delicates and hang them to dry along with that load of laundry, and yeah, they're fine. The washer really doesn't mess them up. I think it's wearing them that messes them up, but you can tell these are well loved. The leg of the sock is kind of short. I wanted it to be a crew length sock, so just to stick up out of my docks, which they do. Let me talk about the yarn. I used the Len Biscott Bee sock in the color Morning Dew, which is a hand-dyed sock yarn, and it looks a little more brown than what I thought it would be on the website, but I think it's still really cute. Let me show you. I think I have the leftovers. So I'm pretty sure this skein, it comes in one of those spiral hanks, and once you unravel it, there's 2 different loops, which is really convenient for making socks, obviously. I guess that's what it's intended for. So I basically wound it into a cake, and this is one of the leftover cakes. It's a really cute sort of variegated pink and brown. And the other one actually is on a pair of socks currently. I had quite a bit left over and I thought it would be enough to do the heel, cuff, and toe on another pair of socks. And because there's sort of white in this, I wound up getting a ball of the Issair sock yarn, which is really nice and soft. It's an alpaca blend sock yarn in the white color, and so I used that as the main color on another pair of socks. I think I'm on the heel of the first sock on that one, and I'm debating whether I should continue or just frog it, because I am going through with the circular sock machine project, and it might be nice to use this yarn and that yarn as my first pair of socks on the sock machine. So TBD if I continue doing that, but regardless, I am very happy with how these socks turned out, and I'm so excited to have more socks soon. Hopefully faster than these were, because it did take me quite a while. So happy with these. TBD if I become a sock knitter or if I wait until my sock machine is built. So the next thing I have to talk about is a summer knit. This is the Poet Top from Sari Nordland. Excuse if there's wrinkles on it. So this is a top-down high neck top that has this all over lace pattern that's so beautiful. This is why I picked the pattern, because look at it, it's just so gorgeous. I thought I was up for the challenge, so that's what I did. I knit the size 2, the second size, and it fits perfectly. It has the perfect amount of positive ease that I would want, and this pattern was my first Sari Nordland pattern actually that I'd ever done, and I'm really impressed with how it was written. It was quite long, but it had a lot of detail and explanation, and the charts were really easy to follow. The only issue, which is not the pattern, it's just the nature of the design, is this was not something that could be super mindless. I definitely had to keep track of my rows every row. I think this motif in particular isn't really one that I could memorize. I find sometimes if there's a texture, I can look at the chart. Once I establish the pattern, I kind of know where it's going and I don't need to refer to the chart all the time. But this one was not like that. I definitely had to keep track of every row, and I just went through with a ruler and a highlighter after every row I'd highlighted. So I knew if I put it down and picked it back up, I would know where I was. It's finished off with I-cord along the edge, I-cord straps, and I did modify it a little bit. I remember the pattern has a double folded hem, so you knit stockinette, I think double the length of what I did, and you fold it over and knit it together. I guess that would have looked nice, but I thought it might weigh the shirt down a little bit. So I just cast off. I knit half the amount of stockinette that it called for and then cast off. And I wasn't sure what cast off to use because obviously I was going off on my own and not following the pattern. So I was looking in my Vogue knitting book and it has a whole section of cast off and what they're useful for. So I did a crochet chain cast off because I didn't want it to stretch. So it turned out pretty nice. I mean, I think there's a little bit of flaring still, but it doesn't really bother me because when I wear it, I tuck it in, like I do a French tuck, or I wear an undershirt and I tuck it up into the shirt. So you can't really see the hem anyway. And it turned out great. I cropped it a little bit. I definitely cut out quite a number of motifs. I don't know how many, but yeah, so that's the pattern. The yarn I used, it actually was gifted to me from my friend for my birthday. She gave me 3 balls of this and I only wound up using 2. So this is the Knitting for Olive Pure Silk in the color Putty, and it's a really nice neutral sort of off-white color. This yarn was so nice to work with. It is pure silk, it's 100% silk, and I thought it would be hard on my hands like linen and cotton are, but it wasn't at all. It has such a nice texture and it's not slippery either. It has like almost a brushed texture, so it's quite soft. But as you can see with this fabric, it gives like a really nice drape, and it's so nice for the summer. Like when I wore this, it was really hot out and the fabric is just so breathable. It's so nice in the summer. So I would definitely love to knit with this again. I obviously have a ball left, but I'm not sure what I want to do with this yet. It is 250 meters. So I don't know what I can do with this. Let me know if there's a one skein project that you think would be good for this, because I'm not really sure what to use this for, but I love it and I want to use it for something special. So that is the yarn I used. I would definitely love to knit this again. Not this top, but knit with this yarn again for some other purpose. Maybe in like a nice black color, and that could be a nice like evening piece. I'm not too sure, but yes, that was the Poet Top. Okay, so the next thing that I made was around the same time of the Poet Top, and this is the Cumulus Blouse from Petiteknit. So here it is. I knit the size extra small, and I mentioned that I had made this pattern before in one strand of mohair and I frogged it. So I had the pattern already in my files, and I came across this yarn, which is the Sandnes Tin Lina, and I saw this green color and I just thought it was so beautiful. I picked it up at the Myrtle Station wool shop and I saw it in person and I thought, wow, this color is so nice. And it's not something I normally knit with, green, but I think it looks really nice on me, and I wound up holding this double. I remember I got this yarn and I only got 3 balls thinking I would make a top or something and hold it single, and then I sat on the yarn for a bit and I thought I wanted to make a Cumulus blouse with it, so I had to get more and hold it double. But that's okay. This is not the intended yarn for the pattern. Obviously it's meant for 2 strands of mohair, I think, but I hit gauge, so I thought I would just go with it. It's a top-down raglan v-neck top with long sleeves and then I-cord finishing. The pattern is pretty straightforward. I didn't really have any issues with that, with making it. The only tedious thing is the I-cord finishing, but even that went by pretty quickly. I think when I Kitchenered the I-cord together, it wasn't the neatest, and I've definitely gotten better at my Kitchener since then, but I'm not too bothered by how it turned out. I don't think I would redo it. And the only other thing is I notice when I do raglans, I do get quite a bit of rowing out on the raglan stitches themselves. So I don't know if you can see, every other stitch is small and every other stitch is big. And I don't know why that is. I think it's because my knit stitches are looser than my purls. So when you're knitting and doing the raglan, before you connect in the round, you're knitting flat. And so whenever I do a purl row, the stitches are nice and tight. And then whenever I do a knit row, the stitches are loose. I don't know how to fix that. I don't know if I care to fix it. I do find that it's an issue in the majority of the raglan sweaters that I do, especially if it's a 1-stitch raglan, but this is really noticeable, I think, because of the yarn. The Tin Lina is a linen blend, so it was kind of hard on my hands, and if there's any mistakes in this yarn, you can definitely see it. I didn't even wind up wet walking this, which Now that I'm thinking about it, I probably should, because I finished it right before my dad's birthday party, and my boyfriend and I were heading out of town to go visit my family for my dad's birthday, and I literally finished this the day before, and so I wanted to wear it. So I steam blocked it only, and that actually did the trick. I think that was the first time I'd ever steam blocked something. I just used my iron with the high steam setting, and I hung it over my ironing board and I steamed it. It even did the stitches pretty well, but I think actually this could do for a wet block, so maybe I'll do that today. After this video, maybe I'll wet block it, because the sleeves are just bracelet length, and in hindsight maybe they could have been a little bit longer, but I think if I wet block it, it might stretch out a little bit. I wanted to say I also really like the v-neck of this. I was worried that I wouldn't care for the v-neck because the only other v-neck that I have is the sweater number 14 v-neck, which I like, but I don't find I get a whole lot of wear out of it because there's something about the v-neck that I wish I could unbutton it. I wish it was just a v-neck cardigan. I don't know why, but this does not bother me. I think it's because it's sort of a shallow V, and it's pretty flattering, the neckline. I thought it might look a little funny, but it doesn't. I definitely think I would make another one of these, maybe in black, maybe with the pure silk held double. I feel like that would be luxury. That would be so nice. That probably won't happen for a long time, but this is the Cumulus Blouse. I'm really happy with it. I would definitely knit another one of these again because the fit is really nice. And I knit the extra small, and that is the Cumulus Blouse. Let me show it to you one more time. The decreases on the arm are pretty obvious. Like, that's what I mean when I say, like, if you make a mistake at all, you're definitely going to be able to see it, because there's something about this yarn that it just doesn't, it could be because I haven't wet blocked it, that the stitches are not super uniform, but if you have rowing out, if you have any mistakes on this yarn, I feel like you'll definitely be able to see. I don't know if it's just this one or any linen blend. I like the feel of the fabric though at the end of the day. Like, it has a really nice drape. It's really nice for the summer, but yeah, something about this yarn, you can see every single mistake, so be warned about that. Okay, the next thing that I made this summer was the Maggie Cardigan. I love this sweater. It turned out so good. I'll talk about the pattern first. It's a sport weight pattern, but I wound up knitting it to a DK gauge, so I sized down to an extra small, even though I'm pretty sure the extra small would have been my size. So it is a little bit big, but that's okay. I was hoping for it to be slightly more fitted, but all the Petiteknit patterns are pretty oversized to begin with. So anyway, I'm still really happy with how it turned out. It's a top-down cardigan with a contiguous shoulder, so the shoulder shaping is actually really interesting. I think you do increases along the back, you pick up here, and then you do increases along the top of the shoulder cap as well to create this sort of nicely fitted shoulder, which is why I think more of a fitted cardigan for this shoulder shaping would have been nicer. I just find the contiguous shoulder doesn't necessarily suit an oversized style as well as like a drop shoulder or a raglan does. So that is how this is worked, and it's a crew neck. It has a 1x1 hem on the neck, the button band, and the body and sleeves. I was debating doing a double knit button band because I love the Champaign Cardigan button band so much in the double knit, and I was thinking about it for so long, trying to figure out how I would make that look uniform because it's a crew neck. So if it were a v-neck, it would be so much easier because it's all one piece, the button band. So I would just do the entire thing around the neck and down in a double knit, and I think that would look really nice. But because it's a crew neck, it kind of is put together in two pieces. So there's the strip of ribbing around the neck, and then there's the button band down the front separately. And I didn't want to do the neck and the button band both in double knit. So I thought if I were to just do the button band double knit, it would look funny. I just couldn't find a way where the connection between the neck and the button band would look nice. So I just went with the 1x1 ribbing, and I was kind of worried that it would turn out sloppy, but it doesn't. I think it turned out really nicely, and I did a tubular bind off. I do a tubular bind off for everything, so the tubular bind off is really nice on the neck. The ribbing doesn't flare out at all really. Kind of at the back of the neck, it blocked a little funny, but that's at the back, so it doesn't matter. The buttons were also gifted to me from my friend from her Japan trip, and that's what inspired me to do this sweater in the first place. These buttons are a little bit oversized, but I think it kind of gives it a cutesy sort of feel, and they're so beautiful. They're like these pearly pink buttons, and I thought these would be perfect for a pink cardigan. So that's sort of why I went with this pattern. I really like the pattern and the fit. Like I said, I wish it was a little bit more fitted, but that's my fault because I was knitting off gauge. I knit with the Knitting for Olive cotton merino in the color Japanese Anemone, held together with Sandnes Sunday in the color Plastic Pink, which is one of the Petiteknit colors. I got these online from Unit and they actually are slightly different. I don't know if you can see the colors. There's like a little bit of a marl effect, but it doesn't look too bad. I think it's just the Knitting for Olive Japanese Anemone is more of a cool tone pink, whereas the Plastic Pink is more of a warm tone pink, and so it creates this marl. The color temperature of the colors are different, but the tone of the colors is the same, so it doesn't wind up being too contrasty, and the cotton really gives it a nice drape and it makes it appropriate for sort of spring into fall, which is really nice. I was worried the cotton merino would be a little slick on my hands and tough on my hands because I don't love knitting with cotton, but it actually is quite nice because of the wool blended into it, and because I was knitting it with a wool, I feel like it was a lot softer on my hands, and the fabric is still light and has a bit of bounce, but it also has a drape, which I really like. So this is the Maggie cardigan. Okay, so the next thing I wanted to talk about, which I won't drone on about because I did mention it in my last video, but I wanted to mention the Colourwork Mittens that I made. So my brother and sister-in-law went on their honeymoon to Scotland and they came back with yarn. This is from a weaver in Scotland called Sky Weavers, and it's a DK. It's quite woolly. It's more of like a light worsted or a heavy DK, but there's the white and the natural gray color. I didn't have these to show you in my last video because I was away, so I can show them to you now. I don't have the ball band, but this is the colors. I wound up giving them the mittens and I literally didn't realize until they opened it and they were trying to put them on that they were both right-handed mittens. So I am gonna have to do something. My plan originally was to knit another pair in the inverted colors. So the pair I made for them, the main color was white and the contrast color was gray, which you can see there's slightly less of the white. And so the idea was to knit the main color as gray and the contrast color as white, and then they can have inverted mittens and I'll have enough yarn for 2 pairs if I do that. But I think since I knitted 2 right-handed mittens, I am going to still do an inverted pair, but both of them are going to be left. And then when I give it to them, they can have one of each, and it's kind of like friendship mittens, which I guess is kind of cute. Honestly, I think it's so hilarious that I didn't even notice. It's funny that I never tried to put the mittens on my hands until I gave it to them. But I think the reason why that happened is because I knit the first one and I waited a really long time to knit the second one. And basically when you make Colourwork Mittens, I don't have it on me to show you, but you knit up the cuff up to the bottom of the thumb, and then you put some stitches on hold and continue knitting, and then you pick up for the thumb after. So for the right mitten, you pick up stitches on the right hand side, and then for the left mitten, you pick up stitches on the left hand side. So basically what I did is I read the pattern, and the instructions have the right hand first. So I read that first, I knit one mitten, and then I put it away for like a month. I picked it up again, and I just started from the top and knit the same thing without flipping the page and realizing that I had already knit the right hand mitten and the left hand was different. So that's what happened. I hope that made sense. It's gonna be okay. They were really nice about it and they were so appreciative of the mittens anyway, but I think it's gonna be even more special once they get their second pair and they can each have 2 mittens that are left and a right. So that's the Colourwork Mittens. Those are something else I made this year. I think I made them in the summertime and then I gave them away at Christmas time. So I made them quite a bit in advance, which I was proud of. Okay, so the next thing that I made in 2024 is the Zipper Sweater Light from Petiteknit. Let me show it to you. It's a top-down quarter zip sweater with a high neck, and it's got raglan shaping and long sleeves with a nice long ribbing on the sleeves and the body. I'll talk about the yarn first. I made this with actually 3 strands of yarn. I held the Sandnes Sunday in the color Baby Blue Eyes together with West Yorkshire Spinners Exquisite Lace in the color Lagoon. And I used 2 of these exquisite lace strands together with 1 of the Sandnes Sunday. And it got me a DK gauge, which is really nice. This exquisite lace, it's a silk and wool blend. And I got these at Myrtle Station Wool. I was able to see them in person and picked these colors to go together. I was originally planning on knitting an April cardigan actually, because I think this color is pretty similar to the blue color that was Petiteknit's sample for that pattern. But I thought about it and I realized that I didn't want to make an April cardigan. So then I wasn't sure what to do with this yarn. I sat on it for a bit and then I decided on the zipper sweater light, which is a DK gauge. I think the regular zipper sweater is like worsted or Aran weight gauge, and I don't prefer that thickness of fabric. I thought it might be a little bulky, so this is what I went with. The colors are ever so slightly different, kind of like the Maggie cardigan, but I think it goes really nicely together. And because I'm holding 2 strands of the exquisite lace, it blends a little better, I think. So this is how it turned out. The fabric is nice and drapey because of the silk content, but I think because of the wool content as well, the neck still like manages to stay up. I was a little worried about it flopping because of the silk content in the yarn, but that's not the case. I believe the zipper sweater light pattern just calls for regular 1x1 rib on all the edges, but the regular zipper sweater calls for twisted rib or half twisted rib. I'm not sure if it's twisted rib or half twisted. Twisted rib is when you twist all of your knits every round. Half twisted is when you twist only every other round. So I wound up knitting half twisted rib and it turned out so nice. Like the knits are so tight. I think I mentioned in my last video that when I do ribbing, I always do a German short row and flip the work so that my knits are on the wrong side and those ones are exposed, because it's always, my purls are tighter than my knits. But because I was twisting every other round, I don't think I actually did a German short row turn, and it turned out really nice and tight and neat. So I'm happy with that. You knit the neck first, or the collar first, and you knit it together, and then you continue and knit the raglan and the rest of the sweater in the round. And after the fact, you sew in the zipper. I was a little intimidated by sewing in the zipper, I'm not gonna lie, but I knew that I can do it. So I just took my time and really read the instructions carefully. There's some videos as well that are linked in the pattern that are helpful, but basically how it works, let me show you, is once you knit the collar, you put the first few stitches on hold on either edge, and at the very end you pick up those stitches and you knit a facing, so that's like a little backside that you can sandwich the zipper in between. So you basically pick up the stitches and you knit all the way down in stockinette on either side, and then you connect the 2 sides together and knit a little patch at the bottom here. I think I actually knit this in the wrong size. Not the sweater, but the facing. I think you're supposed to knit it in the 4mm needle that is called for the whole sweater, whereas I'm pretty sure I knit it in a 3.5 because I had just finished all the ribbing, and that's the needle I had in my hand, and I just wanted to keep going, and I didn't really read that it was supposed to be the 4mm. So my facing gauge is a little bit tight. I just had to stretch it a little bit more than when I was sewing in the zipper so that it didn't pucker, but it worked out fine. And then once you knit the facing, you basically take a piece of yarn. I used 2 strands of the exquisite lace because it has a silk content in it, and there's a video of how to do this, but you basically stitch the lateral side of the facing down to the sweater on the inside, right? So it's attached and it leaves you like a little opening where you can put the zipper in. So that's what you do, and then you line the zipper up and fasten it with pins because the zipper doesn't stretch, but the sweater does stretch. You're supposed to sew the zipper in before you block the sweater, and obviously once you block a sweater, it gets bigger. So that was a little tricky. They don't really tell you how much to stretch it by. I just kind of guessed and it worked out pretty well. And then I took a piece of blue sewing thread and I sewed the zipper down all the way. And as I was going, I tested the zipper to make sure that it wasn't getting caught on the knit fabric. Afterwards, there were a couple sections that the yarn was sticking too close to the teeth of the zipper. So I just went back and I stitched around to kind of tack that piece of yarn down. And it worked out pretty well. Like, the zipper zips, it's very satisfying. Let me talk about the zipper actually, because this was a whole adventure in and of itself. I wanted a metal zipper. Like, I don't know if you can hear that. This is a metal zipper teeth, and a lot of zippers that you get are plastic, and I find that they don't look as nice and they don't feel as nice either. So I knew I wanted metal, and I knew that I wanted gold because all my jewelry that I wear is yellow gold. So I wanted it to kind of match that. And it was so difficult to find a zipper that had blue fabric on it, like the zipper tape was matching, and also gold. Like, it was so difficult, and metal, oh my god, it was really hard. So I wound up finding some zippers on Amazon. Let me show you. So these are the zippers. This is the leftover zipper of the one that's currently on my sweater in navy. They have like a bronze teeth, and they come with heads on them, but they're a bronze color. And it comes with multiple zippers in it. I can link it below in case you're interested in getting this yourself. I will say they're not the greatest quality, and let me show you. I was actually hoping to use this blue color zipper on my sweater, but the teeth on this one for some reason didn't glide really nicely, and I thought there was something wrong with me the way I was zipping it, but it actually is just the quality of the zipper teeth don't go together super smoothly. So unfortunately I couldn't use this one even though it was the closest color to the sweater because the zipper teeth were so choppy. So I don't know if I would totally recommend this, but majority of them are smooth and are usable for future sweaters, so not all is lost. So what I wound up doing is I cut the zipper and I removed the head of the zipper. I'll use this one just for demonstration. So I cut the zipper and I removed the zipper head, and then I actually put on my own zipper head, which I got on Etsy. The zipper head on this sweater is so cute. It's a little bunny, and it's yellow gold. I have 2 pet bunnies and they're like my sons. I thought, how perfect would it be to put a little bunny on my sweater? So this is adorable, and it's exactly what I wanted and hoped it would look like. This is from a seller on Etsy called Sunkissed Melbourne, and they have a couple different shapes of zipper heads that you can get, and so I ordered a few just in case I wanted to make another zipper sweater in the future. They aren't that expensive. I think they were just a few dollars each, and they're metal too, which is nice. So I got a little heart and a little star, which are so cute. I'm so excited to knit another zipper sweater with these zippers on it. But that's the zipper head. I wound up just cutting the zipper, removing the head that came with it, and putting my zipper head on. You do have to be mindful that you get the right size. I think there's 2 common sizes of zipper. There's a 5mm and a 3mm. So these are 5mm zippers, and if you get the wrong size head, obviously it's not going to fit. So make sure you get the same size zipper head. Once I had pinned it to the sweater, I snipped it, and you just snip it with scissors and you remove with pliers the few teeth that are at the very bottom. And I realized that at that point I needed another piece for the zipper because zippers have stoppers, which I didn't really think about. At the top of the zipper there's a little C-shaped ring that keeps the zipper from coming completely right off the end of it. And also at the bottom of the zipper there's a stopper. For these ones, they open up, so these are for a jacket, but for zippers that do not open up at the bottom, there's a little stopper that keeps it from coming all the way off the other end, which I did not think of. So I was sewing this on and I was like thinking if I were to zip this all the way down, the zipper head might just completely come off or get stuck on the fabric. Either way, it's not good. So I wound up ordering these, which I can show you. So I cut the bottom of the zipper right off and I kept it in case I wanted to reuse those parts. So this is the bottom of the zipper that I removed. And then I got these little gold stoppers. I also got these on Amazon. So it came with a few of the top stoppers, the little C-shaped. I don't know if you can see that. They're so tiny. It's like a little C-shaped piece of metal and they're in the gold color. And then these are the bottom stoppers. So they're kind of an X shape. And basically what you do is you just take pliers and pinch the little X shape onto the bottom of the zipper on either side. So this is how it turned out right at the bottom. I could not find gold teeth zippers that weren't just black. So this was the best I could find, this bronze color. And I was worried that it would have too much contrast and it would be kind of obvious that it's not gold. But I don't think it really is. Obviously the gold is lighter on the zipper stoppers, but the little teeth are so small that you can't really tell. And I'm so happy with how it turned out. It it zips all the way down and it stops too, which is really nice. So I don't have to worry about it getting caught on the fabric at the bottom or the zipper head coming right off. And now that I have the stoppers, I can actually reuse this piece of zipper even though it doesn't have anything on either end, and create another zipper for a quarter zip sweater or for whatever purpose, because I have all the pieces that I would need. So I'm really happy that I got these tools, even though it was kind of a pain to like procure everything and find out step by step that I needed something else. But I'm glad that I have it now, and I'm prepared for the next zipper sweater that I will make in the future. I would love to have another one. My boyfriend is now jealous and he wants a zipper sweater too, so that will be down the line. I am so proud of how this turned out, and it's one of my favorite things that I made this year, I think. It just looks so clean and professional, and I've had people ask me if I bought this. It's always a nice compliment to hear that your hand knits kind of look store-bought. So it goes so well with just a white t-shirt and leggings or jeans, and you can dress it up or dress it down. And so yes, this is my zipper sweater light. It was quite the adventure, but now I'm prepared to do it again with less challenges, I hope. Okay, so the next thing that I made in 2024 is actually something that I gave as a gift. It is not here with me, but I will put a picture here because I got a nice photo of it before I gave it away. I guess I'm calling it my winter headband. I self-drafted this pattern. I wanted to knit something for my boyfriend's little sister, and I had a ball of Drops Flora that I had knit a sweater 15 with a few years ago now, and it's just been sitting. It's in the ice blue colorway, and I thought it was such a cute and wintry color, so I decided I would use that to knit her something. She runs track and sometimes she runs outside, so I thought it would be perfect to knit her a little headband that goes over her ears so that she stays warm when she's running. So I had the idea to knit I think it's called the Weekend headband from Petiteknit, which is a 1x1 rib headband, and I purchased the pattern thinking I was gonna make it, and then I realized that I did not want to knit a 1x1 rib headband, and also because it's 1x1 rib, the fabric is a little thicker than stockinette, and it's a 2-layer headband, so you basically knit a really long tube and Kitchener it together, and I thought that it looked a little bulky for what I envisioned, so I decided to just cast on. I cast on with Drops Flora held double on 2mm, no, not 2mm needles, on 3.5mm needles. I cast on just as many stitches as I thought would fit around her head. I think she has a similar sized head to me, so I just cast on maybe 100 stitches. It's in my Ravelry notes, so if you're curious, the exact numbers are there. But I cast on and I just knit a tube in the round, maybe 20 centimeters or so, and I cast on actually with, it was either a provisional or a Judy's Magic cast on. I basically used a cast on where the stitches are live, so that when I came to the end of my tube, I could Kitchener the two ends together and it would look seamless, just in stockinette. My Kitchener at first was a little bit rough, like it wasn't perfectly neat. My cast on stitches, they were at first on just a piece of waste yarn. At the end, when I was ready to Kitchener, I actually slipped them onto another needle so that I could have them both on needles and Kitchener it together. I find it really difficult to Kitchener when the stitches are still on a needle, but it's hard for me to visualize the way the stitches are sitting, because when they're on a needle, like let's just say this is your knit stitch. When they're on a needle, they are like this. They're perpendicular to you, so I can't tell which way is the front and which way is the back of the stitch. So sometimes the stitches become twisted. So what I did after a few stitches, I wasn't really happy with it. I didn't unravel it. I just left it because I knew it would be on the inside anyway. I literally just pulled my needle out of the yarn so the stitches were just sitting there. And that honestly made it so much easier to Kitchener because I can visualize the way the stitches are supposed to lay, and I didn't have to follow a video at all. You just create a row of knits with a darning needle, and that worked way better. So I learned my lesson with Kitchenering that way. I honestly just prefer to raw dog it and Kitchener with the stitches live off a needle. Because it was a wool alpaca blend yarn, they were pretty stuck together, so I didn't have an issue with dropping stitches. It didn't take too long at all. I think I made it in a day, and I tried it on. I think it was a little bit loose for what I wanted it because I knew she'd be wearing it running. I didn't want it to slide around, so I knit maybe 6 or 7 rounds of knitting elastic into it and kind of pulled them so it cinched a little bit, which made it look a little bunchy when it was just sitting there, but once it's on your head, it felt a lot better. So I gave that to her. As soon as she opened it, she put it right on and didn't take it off all evening. So it was really sweet to see her enjoy that, and she definitely did wear it quite a bit. I'm very pleased with that. I think I definitely would knit another one of those. It wound up being a DK gauge, and it was so easy. Like, you don't need a pattern. You just knit a tube and Kitchener it together and Bob's your uncle. So that was my winter headband. Okay, the next thing and the final garment that I have to talk about that I knit this year is the Melange Sweater Man. I mentioned this in the last video, but I didn't have it with me because my boyfriend had taken it on a trip to wear it. So I have it here now. It's so nice. It's a top-down drop shoulder men's sweater from Petiteknit, and it's a DK gauge. I knit it in Knitting for Olive Thundercloud and Slate Gray that I got from Unit. It creates this really nice melange effect. And like I said in the last video, I didn't twist the balls of yarn. I just knit them, and I don't think there's any striping at all. Let me know if you see any, but I definitely don't. I actually have the leftovers to show you as well. So this is the yarn. I think this is the Thundercloud and this is the Slate Gray. This is all I have left. And I'm so proud of myself because I learned the hard way with the storm sweater that I made for my boyfriend. I ordered the yarn for the size XL. I think I only knit the L, and I got a couple extra because I was so paranoid about running out. Because I knew the sweater was so big, I didn't want to have to order twice. But for this sweater, I knew what size I wanted to do, which was the size large, and I got only the amount of recommended yarn. Petiteknit did not do me dirty. I was very happy with this. So this is less than a skein of yarn for each of these. I don't know what I'm gonna do with this. Currently, they're gonna sit in my stash bin. My bin of stash yarn is essentially just leftover skeins that I have from garments, and it's pretty convenient because whenever I want to knit a gift, which is typically an accessory unless it's a sweater for someone really special, I can just pull from that, and usually I have enough yarn in one color that I can make an accessory, and it's very convenient. So I don't know what I'm going to use this for, but I'm sure it will get used eventually. If not for an accessory, then for some sort of color work, because these are pretty basic colors. The Merino actually blocked so nicely. You can see it's got like a nice drape, but this is not heavy. I think I mentioned in my last video that the two most recent men's sweaters that I've made were so heavy that they pulled and made the sweater way bigger than it was supposed to be. But this yarn does not have this issue. I think this is Merino. Yeah, it's Merino. It's called Knitting for Olive Merino. Hello. And this yarn has a really nice lightweight sort of quality to it. It has a good heft, like it doesn't feel too light, but it doesn't get so heavy that it's weighing the sweater down. And I actually did have to block this twice because I thought it would be longer, and he put it on and it was just a tad too short, so I blocked it again and stretched it, and I think it's perfect now. I'm really happy with it. I wouldn't go back in to graft it and extend it longer. I think if anything, like if he really got annoyed with how long it is, or how short it is rather, I would just block it a third time, because this yarn dried so fast too, like literally one day and it was dry, which is crazy. He wears this a ton already, and I don't think there's an issue with the length. I think it's perfect. So this is the Melange Sweater Man. I won't go talking about this forever because I already did in the last video. If you want to learn more about this sweater, you can watch my last video. So yes, that is the last garment I made in 2024. All right, so the next few things that I made in 2024 I don't have with me, but I will mention them briefly. So that was the penny gloves and the ribka pouches. So I made some penny gloves in Sandnes Sunday Perfect Purple held double for my mom for Christmas to match the hat that I also made in 2024. I was knitting them off gauge, so they did come out differently than what the pattern calls for, but they fit her perfectly. She's already used them multiple times and she really is happy with them. So that was the penny gloves. After that, I knit some ribka pouches, which I can put a picture here. They're just little fish-shaped pouches. So you knit each side flat and then you seam it together and fold over one edge to create a little drawstring channel. And I knit 2.5 of these for gifts, and they turned out really well, but like I said, the crochet edging wasn't really the cleanest and I wasn't entirely happy with it, as well as just them being kind of tedious. I don't know if I would knit another one again for a while. I definitely need a bit of a break. I knit one of them in Sandnes Sunday, held double in the color Baby Blue Eyes, which I have here. So it actually was the leftover from my zipper sweater light, this color, and then I knit another one in the leftover from the Perfect Purple, and I ran out halfway through, so I only made one half of the fish. And the third version I actually made in, yet again, the Drops Lima in the color Chalk, which I'm slowly getting through my leftovers. They were not the same gauge as the pattern, but they turned out perfect for my purposes. So yes, that was the Ribka pouches. And the final thing that I made in 2024, I guess you wouldn't say that I knit it in 2024, but I finished it in 2024, and that is the Korshavn Sweater Man from Strict Cafe. I can put a picture of it here. I spoke about this in my last video, so I won't go on about it, but basically I knit this sweater, and it was not originally for my brother, but it wound up going to my brother, and it also wound up being so incredibly long. I had the same issue as I did with the Storm sweater, where it was just so big and heavy that it pulled and it wound up being way too long. So I had to graft it. I grafted around the body, which I don't even know how many stitches that was, and then around both sleeves, and I think it turned out way better than what it was before. So that is the last thing I think I did in 2024, and hopefully it fits my brother much better than it did prior to me grafting it. I knit that in the size XL in Drops Alaska in the color Toffee, which is a really nice yarn. They have a good amount of colors, and it is nice and woolly, so I guess as long as the person receiving it isn't super sensitive, then it would be pretty good for a gift knit. I think I would knit with it again, except for the fact that I don't really knit bulky weight that much anymore. I more prefer DK or worsted. Bulky is a little too bulky for me, but it is a nice yarn, and I wouldn't be upset about knitting with it again. I just don't foresee a situation where I would be knitting with it again, if that makes sense. That was the last thing that I completed in 2024. If you have sat through this much of the video, thank you so much for watching and sticking around. I had a lot of fun talking about everything that I made this year and reflecting on the things that I liked and maybe didn't like so much. One thing I'm proud of this year is doing my gift knits in advance and kind of managing my time pretty well with the gift knits rather than knitting things more last minute. I really like to keep my knitting relaxing and low stress, so that is something I want to continue doing in 2025. One other thing that I enjoyed out of my 2024 knits is the colors that I used for my garments. One thing I was trying to be more mindful of in 2024 is knitting with more color. I find I gravitate more towards neutrals and black, whereas this year I really did knit a lot of exciting colors that I really enjoyed and brought me joy. So the colors that I picked were fun and they really suit me, I think. That is something I really was pleased about for my makes this year. If you want to learn more about the latest things that I made in 2024, you can watch my last video podcast where I talk about them in a little more detail. I think my next video will probably be another knitting podcast whenever I have some updates on the things that I'm working on. But if there's anything else you'd like to see from me, I'd love to know what you'd be interested in. I hope that I managed to show you the sorts of things that I like to make, and I hope to see you in the next video. All right, bye.